What if I told you, Black knowledge is Black power? And this is why we're so excited that all of these folks chose Black studies. And as someone who was formerly homeless and learned that in a homeless shelter, I'm happy to pay it forward in this way. And then people look and they're like, you were homeless? Wow. Black knowledge is Black power? Wow. It's like a double down of a bunch of different things.
Thanks for joining us today on the Gift of Failure. We have an unbelievable human being with us today, Dr. Marcus Hunter. Actually, aside from being an author of 3 different books, being an incredible human being, actually was homeless at one point, which I'm very excited to learn, how all that's transpired. Although he's not part of the Black Lives Matter, organization per se, in 2012, he invented the term. He coined the term himself that created one of the most important movements, arguably in the last 50 years. So, Marcus,
Peace.
How are you, my guy?
I'm doing good. I feel, as we say in our culture, blessed and highly favored. I'm just honored to be here.
I love that, and I can definitely mimic that. What we like to talk about here is really the definition of failure to you, which we've come to really believe in talking to some of the most incredible minds like yourself. Like, you're in great company with a lot of the other guests, of what that word means. What does success mean? And is there a relationship between them? And if there is, what does that mean? If there was a failure before, did you learn something from it? Is there meaning? And so I wanted to just lay that foundation for you of the topics and just hear whatever's in your heart around those issues, and bless our listeners' ears with some of this knowledge.
Yeah, no, I think that's an important concept. And for me, especially during the pandemic, I did a lot of spirit homework. And one of my big pieces of spirit homework was the power of words, and then boiled down into the power of letters. And as you know, the English language is perhaps the most powerful language known to man. And it is composed of 26 letters. And an interesting way is 26, 2 plus 6 is 8. 8 is death, sex, and transformation. If you just think about, all of our discussions about gender pronouns, about death and dying during the season, about life and transforming our situation.
And 8 is the infinity sign also, and a symbol of wealth in Chinese culture. It's all, yeah, I'm with you.
Right. And so you see how the alphabet is powerful just in the amount of numbers that make it, or letters that make those numbers into 26. And so I started to really think a lot about each letter representing a source power. So, for example, I began with Ra, the sun god, the first one that we know. R, gets its power from the sun.
Ra predated Jesus Christ in some of the...
There we go, right? And we would presume that, Jesus worshiped the sun as well, so it all
the son of God. He was the son of God.
Yes. So you see where I've been going in my time.
Love it. And a man after my own heart. I was an English major, by the way. I was an English major in undergrad, and I was an attorney a recovering attorney. So I'm a lover of knowledge. So
I love that.
In my core business as a real estate person, don't take that for me not like loving everything that you're saying and being just so interested in the stuff that that you're talking about. So
I love it. Yeah, and just a little bit about me. Before I became a college professor, I was a high school English teacher. So we just come all the way back around, And so all that to say that I spent a lot of time thinking about not only words that we use, but what each individual letter, where it draws its power from, the source power. And so that then means that every word we use just as a word. So I'll just use the word fail, which I really love what you're doing with just that word. What if, as opposed to just the word fail as we see it, it instead stands for forward attitude inspired by lessons, right?
Man.
Because whenever you have that,
say that again. No, say that one more time. That was a bar. Let's say that one more time slowly. That was a bar.
Yeah, forward attitude inspired by lessons.
Love it.
Right?
Beautiful.
And so I really meditated on this in preparation of sitting before you, thinking about that, not only my own actual failures, but also what do they mean, especially for the average person. Usually what happens is you didn't win, or as we say, you took the L, and you have to figure out how to move forward with an attitude that's inspired by what you learned, right? So that's really what fail means. And I think a lot of times when we don't decode words, we just sort of see them at their superficial level, which is a failure. Nobody wants that. That's not a good feeling. And it involves suffering and not achieving whatever it was that you set out to do, versus what I think you're getting at, which is how these failures emphasize and influence our wins. You know, that if you hadn't had it, you wouldn't actually be who you are now. It builds the character, it builds the human experience that we're all here to have. And so I think it's really important. What you're doing is reclaiming the word fail and reframing it for people in a way that I think is actually more spiritually aligned with how we experience them and what the power that we can unlock from a failure can do for our lives.
Well, I have to tell you, God bless you, bro, from the bottom of my heart. I mean, it means so much to me that, you know, just on a personal level, that you not only see that, recognize it, and even drawn on it and built on it and articulate it, better in a lot of ways, because I'm 100% in agreement with you because of the baggage of that word. And I
Right.
don't think, and to even go further on your thesis is words, they asked Nikola Tesla, if you wanted to understand the universe, think in terms of energy, wavelength, and frequency. So
Mm-hmm.
words and sounds are also frequencies and energies as well that affect us on a much more esoteric level, even to like furthering your point. So when we use this word failure and we're exuding a lesser emotion or a base emotion as opposed to like an elevated emotion like Joe Dispenza talks about, you're actually creating a negative sentiment, where in reality, as you're alluding to, is we fail to learn. Like, we say, we've joked in house, one of my best childhood friends, and I were playing with failure the other day and like saying failing forward and these different things. And we came up with this term, fail on, almost like if
Mm-hmm.
I'm bidding you farewell to like, a dear friend, be like, fail on, my
Right.
friend. Like, like just saying
Right.
something where
Right.
like, that's like almost like a bon voyage of
Yeah.
what this journey of life is,
Yes.
going through those failures. Because I think you agree. What I'm hearing is this is the human condition. Like this
Exactly.
is not, this knows no race, this knows no
Right.
boundary, this knows no gender. This
Right.
is how we do something and how we learn, take the lesson, and then move on to what that is. So even taking that L, and personally, I like to give out the L's than take them, as just to be clear. No, but I wrote a whole book,
Right.
as you know, on all the failures in my life.
Yes.
So
Right.
trust me, I've had
Mm-hmm.
more than most. But my question to you is, the philosophy is absolutely beautiful and a perfect way to lay the stage. How is that translated to your personal experience? Like, can you tell me
Mm-hmm.
something about you as a man of,
Mm-hmm.
what was a failure then that now you see as the blessing, or how did that lead you on the different course?
Mm-hmm.
Like personally.
Yeah, I'll start with, my lesson during the pandemic, which I'm sure you can relate to. Everyone at this point can really relate to the power of isolation, And part of what happened in that is that my father, he turned 60, and 2 weeks later, he died of a heart attack on Labor Day of 2020. And he died away from home in Savannah, Georgia. And what's important, and this is where the fail part comes in, is that he and I grew up with him raising me almost my whole life. So I am one of the fortunate people who I know who my father is, and
Yeah.
he was very Black, and he raised me in ways that really have a lot of
Made you the man that
influence
you
on
are.
exactly who I am. And then he died. And when he died, we have been estranged for 3 years. So I immediately thought about how I had failed to reconcile that relationship before he died, which I think a lot of people experience
Oh, yeah,
usually, especially given how
absolutely.
complicated parental child relationships can be. But then add in that during a pandemic, a lot of people weren't even able to see their
Like
relatives or their
physically, they
loved
couldn't
one
even see them.
exactly. So it's this kind of like, double death that you experience, where you were failed in life, and then before it was over, you look up and I now have my dad's ashes in my home, which then is also a part of my meditative space, which I learned is that oftentimes when we think about the loss of a parent, it's one of the most devastating experiences you could have as
True.
a human being. But the other thing that really came to me in thinking and processing his loss is that just because your parent has ascended to the beyond doesn't mean that they're removed of their contract and duty to you. They brought you
Absolutely
here,
right.
right?
And
So
they're alive in your DNA too. I mean, truly, on an
exactly.
epigenetic level, they really could never
There you go.
die.
Right.
I mean,
And to take it
right?
a step further, they're not removed of their duty. They're in your blood. And now they're removed of all of the complications of being a human. So my legs hurt. My head hurts. I had a bad attitude. I don't like
Wow.
going to
So
certain
they're
things.
liberated, is what you're saying. They're
Exactly.
liberated from the human flaw and can only have the
Exactly.
purest sense of truth left.
Yes, and it's all for you. So now, for people
Beautiful.
who wonder about, like, I never got to reconcile with my parent, they're removed of those flesh complications, and all you get is the best of them. So if you need something to happen, you want something to manifest, you call them up. They're still obliged. They still
Preach.
have a duty to you. So
Tell
that's
them.
one of the
Tell
failures
them.
transmuted for me. Is like I lost my father at a very young age. And also, there I have siblings, and me and my brother are 13 years apart. So my brother is only 25 years old when this happens. That's a lot of deepness to
A
leave
lot.
on someone.
A
But
lot.
at the same time, I realized, like, now I have a spirit warrior on the other side who has a duty to me that cannot be complicated by their own human experience. So that's an example of, like, that personal loss and grief and a failure really creating, to me, an alchemy about how I think about my life, how I think about my family, and also how I think about my future with a very forward leaning attitude.
Well, that's absolutely stunning. And I appreciate there's a lot of, power and vulnerability. And I appreciate that. But so those are people that are just listening to this on audio, and, we might be releasing some of the video down the road, but mostly will be audio, obviously. In watching your body language and watching your face, I want to, make a simple observation that is
Mm,
very profound to me
mm,
is a lot of times people could say what you just said and
mm,
use the words, but the amount of grace and love
mm,
that you expressed in
mm,
your face, like
mm,
that truly the level of authenticity was second to none. Like, meaning
mm,
this man not only just told you philosophically the truth, but also is living it. And I watched it
mm,
in your face. It was very
mm,
moving, by the way. Like, I could
mm,
see that's because sometimes, and I'm as guilty of it as anyone, is, something intellectually,
mhm.
but you don't, your own shit gets in the way and you can't walk
Right.
the walk. And clearly, you truly have a level of peace around that. And that's a fucking win by itself. My
Yeah. Right. Right.
congruent. It feels very congruent. Selfishly, I kind of want to know, because
Yeah.
homelessness is a big deal to
Yeah.
me. Because look, we're one of the largest home builders and
Yes.
apartment owners and whatever. So to not have a heart towards
Hmm.
homelessness or house, all the reasons
Right.
around it almost seems like I got the privilege to do what I do in my life, to build
Hmm.
just like other wealthy people, but I'm not going to
Hmm.
forget it. Like, so I mean, it's something very important to me. So
Yeah.
I'd love to hear,
Yeah.
how does a man like you, first of all, become homeless? Second of
Hmm.
all, you know, how did you get out of it?
Yeah. So I really appreciate you shining a light on this experience, because it is also something that it took me a long time to actually talk about. And I've had, a lot of different traumas, but for whatever reason, the homelessness experience really stayed with me to a point where people who knew me
I mean,
didn't even know it
I
happened,
mean, come on. I mean,
you know?
that's the extremity is
Right,
can you blame them for,
right,
that's a tough thing.
right.
And I don't, for you not be able to talk about it too, that's heavy.
Yeah, and it took a while, and I think the background is at one point my parents they split up. My mom is originally from North Jersey, my dad is from South Philly, and so he and I and my brother Maurice at the time we're about 3 years apart. We were living with my dad. He had gotten into a relationship with an older woman who owned her own hair salon up
Mhm.
in the northern part of Philly, and their relationship went south, and one day she just told us, he had to go. And me and my brother, we had to be about, if I was 7, Maurice was 4. And we had a couple of bags. We had been living there for about a year. So, but we just had a bag
It was
each.
home. I mean, it's home.
Right. And we go out into the street. My dad has nowhere to go, really, no family to really stay with. And there were some relatives that said to him, well, we'll take the kids, but you have to figure this out. And he was like, I'm not separating with my kids. I don't want to add
Good
that
man.
trauma to this experience. And so he called a basketball
Takes
coach
a
he
lot of
had.
courage.
This is on the payphone back in the day, So he calls on the payphone, collect a coach he had in high school on basketball. And the coach's wife answers and she says, well, I know of a place that's more long term, but you're going to have to wait while we call and see if we can get you in. In the meantime, we had to go downtown to this area of Center City called Cherry Street, where it was a huge warehouse that just had cots. And we stayed in there for the first day. And I remember, like I said, I was 7, 8 years
And you
old.
remember this vividly, I assume.
Oh,
Like, this is
yes.
a visceral experience.
Yes. Yeah. And something that outside of watching like reruns of MASH as a kid or something where you see those cots, in the army.
Yeah, with the metal and the little springs underneath. Yeah.
I never had actually experienced seeing that. And the other thing is that there were so few children in this space. It was a lot of adults. So I remember thinking that it was so scary just being on these cots and then the lights just go out. So you just like hold on to yourself. I fell asleep facing my dad. The next day, we basically hitch a ride on a SEPTA train and SEPTA bus, actually. We take the bus for about an hour into the city. We go to this place up on top of Hawken, right next door to Martin Luther King High School in Philly, for folks who be listening who know that location. And we were fortunate enough that we got in. And so we had a bunk bed room where I slept on the floor. My brother and dad slept on a bunk bed, and we lived there for a year. To make it even deeper, I had such shame about it that
Hold on, whoa. You were there for a year?
a year. Yeah.
With your brother and your dad?
Yep. For a whole year. And to make it just to reveal the shame that I had around it. And also just how difficult it was for me to process that as a kid is at homeless shelters, or you may or may not, at homeless shelters, they'll have community organizations that come out and do events, at the facility. So they come out and they do a knowledge is power event. And it's very, kid friendly and everything. They had us play games, and then we all got knowledge is power t-shirts. Now, a bunch of us who were at the homeless shelter, the kids, we all got this t-shirt. So we had to walk to the neighborhood school the next day. And I remember putting on the shirt because it was a new shirt. It was clean. It was something I had worn.
You're proud of it.
Right, exactly. I walk out of the facility and every kid from the homeless shelter has this shirt on. Okay, so I'm now no longer wearing it. I go back, I put on something that's wrinkled. I go out to school. I arrive a little bit late. And when I come in, there's a young girl who says, hey, Bobby, it's so good to see you. I thought your family moved. And I'm like, yo, I'm not Bobby, but she doesn't know who I am. And apparently Bobby has a house. So I pretended to be Bobby in this school for that entire marking period until I was able to leave.
That's how you were able to protect that was like a, wow. So that was a serious protective defense mechanism to protect your soul.
Right. And it also created a thing where
internal conflict.
Yeah, where it becomes buried, because also part of what happens is in order to protect myself, I also hardened my heart. I became somebody who wasn't me, which meant that I began a process of not loving myself.
Temporarily.
Right.
Thank God.
Right. And to bring it full circle, when I became the inaugural chair of the Department of African American Studies, I have a series of proverbs that are unique to me that I share often.
Please share.
Yeah, and there's one that I share at the graduation. It was our first real, the first full chair of that department, real graduation we were having for our master's and undergraduate students. And I said to everyone, by show of hands, how many people know the phrase knowledge is power? Everybody raised their hands.
Do they know that it was Sir Francis Bacon who said it first?
No, I didn't know that, actually. I didn't know that.
Sir Francis Bacon, my friend. There's not much I could probably teach you, but being an old English maker, that's Sir Francis Bacon. That's Sir Francis Bacon.
And everyone knows this. And mind you, this is a 95% plus Black family audience, so they all raised their hands. And I said to them, "Well, what if I told you, Black knowledge is Black power?" And this is why we're so excited that all of these folks chose Black studies. And as someone who was formerly homeless and learned that in a homeless shelter, I'm happy to pay it forward in this way. And then people looking like, you were homeless? Wow. Black knowledge is Black power? Wow. It's like a double down of a bunch of different things.
Makes me so happy to hear. This is just, anyways, keep going. This is beautiful.
Yeah, and so these are the kinds of experiences that I've had that I realize that as I process them, you become a bit more open-hearted. And the heart space is the most important space to be expansive from, because it then, reminds you that you're a spiritual being having a human experience.
Absolutely.
The human experience
Correct.
happens in the heart space,
100%.
and so
we call it
those things.
Robin Sharma, and I didn't mean to cut you off. Robin Sharma, who is just a brilliant human being. He has a book called The 5 a.m. Club. And he's written a bunch of stuff, like The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari and a bunch of other things. Robin is absolutely beautiful, and he very much ascribes to like these 4 elements where people say like a mindset, like I have the right mindset. He calls what you're saying a heart set. Like having your heart set, your mindset, like meaning to separate those things together, of like literally calibrating, what is the lens that your heart is going to be? Because we all know mindset. We know how to intellectualize, that focus we want. But what you were able to capture on, as I'm hearing, is as you're speaking, to your audience, sharing with them, combining what a mindset would be like intellectually around quote unquote knowledge, but also the heart around it, how that actually creates true power. Because we both know that the power is in the heart, the power is not in the mind.
That part. Exactly. Right. Like I often say, our mind is really just like a multi-trillion-dollar projector, and because it does so much work for us, I believe our first level of mind control is our actual minds, where we just let it run the show, as opposed to like
you telling it what to do.
Yes, from the heart space. Yes, exactly. It's like, from my heart, this is what I want to see. From my heart, this is what I want to be. From my heart, this is the vision I have. And then what happened is your mind will produce negative thoughts because it doesn't want to do something high level like that. It likes what it's doing.
So your brain, if you look at the brain in general, so if you look at the amygdala of the brain, was designed, we basically have an ancient brain. Think of it that way. Like, meaning our brain was designed to keep us away from harm, right? And so the trend towards the negative tendency that the mind goes, that is very much the human condition, is actually physiological, not just psychological, because we were trained, because basically we have the brain, a 2 million year old brain living in a modern, modern culture. But one thing that's incredible about what you're saying is that science has proven what you've saying with heart rate variability. So what happens is, when you get into a heart-centered, whether through heart-centered breathing, whether through transcendental meditation, whether through just positive elevated emotions, quite literally, the frequency of your heart rate beats, mimics the frequency of your brain. So your heart and mind become in sync with an actual like scientific level. So when you do what you're saying, physiologically, you're ready to go, tackle the obstacles with the right heart set and mindset synergized.
That's alignment. Yeah. Wow. Yes. I love that.
It's all stuff intuitively. I'm just, I'm saying what you're saying, but just in different ways that I've learned it intellectually.
I love that. Yes.
Come on, that's, you know how I do it.
Yes, I love that. Yes.
I love the marriage. I believe in the marriage and the harmony of, science and spirituality. Like, I don't believe they're mutually exclusive, if that makes sense. Like, the highest level of spirituality should be in sync with science. Like, science should be like, meaning they're not, I don't look at them as separate things. So when I see science verifying something that you're explaining on a deep esoteric level, like, that's what, I kind of call a God nod. It's like all right, this was there. I got the formula.
Yeah, and I like what you did too, because, for a lot of people, they need that scientific verification of the intuitive disposition, in order for it to become like real. And for example, something that I do frequently is every day I do at least a 20-minute period of what I call my devotional space, which effectively is a playlist that I've created of songs by people that I really love, and I just go straight forward
Are
through them.
you gonna share it with your boy? Like you
Oh,
gotta
I'll share with you. I'm just
send me the
recently coming over.
Spotify. So if you have it on whatever modality, I'd love to get in that
Oh,
frequency
sure.
with you, man.
Yeah.
Like that'd be my honor.
Oh yeah, I'll hook you up with my devotion playlist.
If
It's
it's
I've
not,
been
if
using.
I'm not infringing on if it's
No, I
private, like
actually
I'd love to
no.
hear, because obviously I see it in your face and in your
Yeah,
words. It's so powerful that clearly, we mimic the people, like you want to find the role
yes,
models in different
yes.
places that you can look at, and people have so much they can learn from you. And the time when this comes, if you're comfortable, I'd love to share that with some of the listeners
Of
of
course,
like
it
something
would
to
be a
get them,
pleasure. Yes,
in sync them with what you're saying.
yes. Yeah, it would be a pleasure and an honor because I mean, another play with words. The only difference between a sorcerer and a resource is you. So I like being a
Oh, it's a
resource.
bar. Bar. I love it, man. I love it. Look, I really like I could literally talk to you forever, and I would love to found a time for you to come to Austin or to see each other
Sure, I
in
would love
person and
to.
continue this dialogue.
Yeah.
There's one question that I ask everybody at the end of the
Hmm.
show, and the hope here was to create, and you've done it beautifully, is like a quick, but not too long, just really direct some jewels that they can listen to and, hopefully have a positive impact on their lives and things.
Yeah.
And what I like to end the conversation with is one question.
Yeah.
If there was one thing that you wish everybody in the world knew, what would it be?
Love. It's love. Love is the message. Love is the greatest power. Love is it. And I think if we just lived in a
Period.
vibrating word on love, I mean, what a world we would live in.
Yeah. Wow. I thank you so much for spending some time with us today. Truly. And we are going to connect offline, and I look forward to spending a lot of time together, and we'll go break some gluten-free bread together and have some
I love
good
it.
times.
I
Well,
love
God
it.
bless you, my friend. Talk to you
Thank
soon.
you. All right.
Take it
Sounds
easy.
good.